Hello, this is What's All About, and in this review we're looking at an offering from Thomas Earnshaw, namely the Beaufort. So without further ado, let's start the unboxing process. So you do get this rather splendid looking wooden box within this outer cardboard box, and here we have it. Nice wood grain. It would look pretty neat on your bedside table or anywhere else. And here we have the watch in question. So we have a little pack here which is nicely done with instruction manual, etc, etc. So that's very nice and neat. We have Earnshaw at the back there of the case, and of course we have the watch in question. So we have a little tag that comes with it with the number, the ES-8082, and then finally we have a little polishing cloth as well. So let's take the watch off and have a look at it in closer detail. Right, let's get rid of all this stuff now. So here we have the watch itself, the Thomas Earnshaw Beaufort. So price wise, the RRP is £330. However, I do have a code WIAA, as in What's All About 30. So that's WIAA 30. That gives you 30% off anything off the Thomas Earnshaw website. So if you are interested in anything from Thomas Earnshaw, go ahead and use that code. That brings it down to about £230 or approximately $300. Okay, so let's go through all the various details and discuss if it's a worthy watch of your money. So let's discuss the size first of all. Start off with the specs. So my wrist is approximately 7¼ inches for your reference. So we have a diameter, it's fairly large, 43mm, obviously a little bit larger than you would expect for a classy dress watch, but the thing is with Earnshaw watches, they never tend to be too small, they are quite on the large side. We have quite an impressive height as well of 14mm, obviously that's a lot taller than you'd expect for a classy watch too. And then we have a lug to leg length of 50mm, which actually isn't too bad considering the size of the diameter. So that does actually fit a lot of reasonably sized wrists pretty well because of the dumpy lugs. Size-wise, I think it's still pretty wearable, to be honest, because of how tall it is and the fact that it is a pure barrel shape. It does wear, you know, a little bit on the large side. However, I don't think it's too crazy large for anyone 7 inches. 7-inch wrist and over. I think they'll be perfectly suitable. Obviously, because of the height, it might be a little bit difficult getting it under a cuff or a jumper, however. Weight-wise, we've got a weight of 75 grams, so it does feel pretty good on the wrist. You know, it feels good quality, feels sturdy enough, feels good in the hand as well when you're handling it. Water resistance is 5 atmospheres or 50 meters. You do have a measure of cover there in case you do have any accidents relating to water. Definitely don't swim in it though, not that you would want to anyway, as it's a dress watch. 22mm lugs, so I think that suits perfectly. The 43mm diameter of the case, maybe a little bit on the wide side. You know, it's probably a little bit wider than many people would expect on a watch of this style. You get a 2-year warranty as well. Moving on to the movement. Now, it doesn't actually anywhere, I couldn't find anywhere what type of movement it is, and I tried looking on various websites as well, you know, like Miyota, etc, etc. I couldn't find this movement anywhere, so it's most likely some undescript made in China movement. It doesn't seem to be a Miyota because Miyotas have a different type of rotor as well, and it is quite small, so I couldn't find it. However, it appears to have not been regulated in any way, shape or form, because when I measured it, it was plus 26.2 seconds a day, which is obviously really, really wildly out. So that is just something to be aware of if you were to go for this watch. It looks nice, however. You can see our lovely open heart ticking away there, and you know, the rotor is nice and free. Nice bit of pearlage on the bridges as well, so it does look pretty nice. However, it doesn't seem to be the most accurate going at all. So let's discuss it in further detail, closer aspect by aspect. So starting off with the dial. So it is a very specific design. I do like this like skeletonized approach with just a slither. Obviously epitomized at the base at number 6 o'clock with the open heart movement ticking away. We have a nice little bit of bridging as well. Usually I find with Earnshaw that Sometimes things can look a little bit cheap, but on this watch, you know, nothing looks cheap at all, which is really good. You know, these two screws either side of the open heart, genuinely look like real screws. They look the part, and all this exposed bit here all looks really good quality as well. So that's a really good show of quality. The dial base itself has this lovely pattern to it, galoche pattern. Really impressively done as well, and we have these applied numerals sitting on top as well, and you can see there they're pretty thick as well. And we have at 12 o'clock a 24-hour indicator. So the cool thing about this actually is that it stays on the hour until the hour is passed. So you can see at the moment the time is 20 to 7 as an example, but the 24-hour indicator is pointing directly at 6. Now as soon as it goes past 7 o'clock, it will move and point directly at 7. Bop. And then if we continue moving, it will again jump to 8, which is really unusual, really nice bit of differentiation as well, because usually with the 24-hour indicator it is literally, you know, if it's 8:30, for instance, that hand would be a little bit past 8, you know, it would gradually go around as the time advances. So it's nice to have that little jump, a little bit different, something a bit unique about it. So that's a nice little plus. The logo is applied, the logo itself isn't applied, but it has it's printed on top of a little plaque, which means you know, it's easier to print on the pattern, which is nice. And the hands as well, really you know, decent design, quite a classy grandfather clock style, and they're blued as well, as you can see. And the counterweight to the second hand is the Earnshaw logo, which is pretty neatly done as well. So all in all, you know, the design, personally, I could probably take or leave the design. It's probably a tiny bit too busy for me. It's very elegant though, so if it does catch your eye, then you know, you can be sure that it is well manufactured, that's for sure. Moving on to the case then. So as you can see, we have a really nice anti-reflective coating on our crystal. I believe it is just a mineral crystal, however. No sign of sapphire here, which is a shame. And then moving on to the case, we have like a nice coin edge to the main section itself, which is a lot nicer than a standard like brushed or polished side. I think it gives a lot of you know, it's a bit more eye-catching, let's say. We have an interesting pusher here as well, which actually advances the 24-hour indicator. Whether that's because you can use it at second time zone or not, that's pretty handy. You can just push it with a simple pencil or a pen and it will advance it, so that's pretty neat. And then we have the crown as well with the Earnshaw logo really deeply engraved, and it's a decent grip as well. Really nice and easy to use, the crown, and I think it looks good in comparison to the rest of the case as well. And then lugs are fully polished, so they stand out nicely. Moving on to the case back then, let me just give it a wipe. Fully polished case back with some details, reasonably deeply engraved around the outside, which is a good spot as well. And then we have our exhibition window with the Earnshaw logo and 1805 printed on the underside there. Moving on to the strap, as I mentioned before, 22mm. It probably is a little bit thicker than you would imagine for a watch of this style. It has an alligator stamp on it as well. It's pretty reasonable, to be honest. It's nothing crazy to write home about, but it is quite soft and supple. As you can see, I can bend it pretty easily. So it does give you a measure of comfort whilst you're wearing it. And then moving on to the buckle, we have the classic Earnshaw buckle, which is basically an E, which is pretty clever. It looks great. You know, it has the Earnshaw logo engraved on the top bar, polished sides as well. However, it does, after a little while, I do find that because this section here is the bit that has the main contact with the strap, it does tend to wear a little bit in the center, more so than the rest, because that is where the main point of contact is. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so let's get the macro lens on now and have a look at it in closer detail. Starting off with the dial then. Here we have the lovely backdrop to the dial itself. As you can see, really nice and accurate guilloche kind of feel to it. And we have our hour markers too, nice and deeply applied. And here's our logo on a little plaque. Moving on to the hands themselves, as you can see there, nicely blued, nice unique shape as well. And our double E logo counterweight, which is pretty neat. And then here's our subtle 24-hour indicator, which is, again, nice and subtle. Moving on to the movement itself. So here's our open heart, and you can see here's our screws either side. Everything looks really purposeful, really nicely done, really well put together as well, which is pretty good. And just a little bit more off the dial. So yeah, really impressed by the quality of the dial. Moving on to the case then, we have this coined edge, which will probably last quite well as well, because if it was just a flat slab polished, it would show up a lot of scratches very quickly, whereas this you know, is a sensible choice for keeping everything looking neater for longer. That's one of our polished lugs, and of course our polished bezel as well. Flip it over to the underside. Here's some of our, you know, it picks up fingerprints like a beast because it's pretty much fully polished, the rest of the case. But our details are all nicely, accurately and deeply engraved. And then moving on to our movement itself. There's the double E logo printed on the underside, and some of our movement as well. You can see there we have some pleasant perlage to the bridges, and also to the rotor itself as well. And moving on to the strap, so you can see our top grain, you know, nothing crazy, nothing to write home about, with our matching black stitching. Then on the underside we have a bit of stamp work there. And finally, if we just have a quick look at the buckle. Here's the top bar with Earnshaw. Unfortunately, it appears to be laser etched, which is a shame, but a brushed top bar and then polished sides, as you can see there. Okay, so would I personally buy this watch? No, I wouldn't. I think there's a lot nicer options out there for cheaper than the RRP. I probably would if it was a greater discount than what it's available at the moment. I think, you know, even with my code 30% off, I still think it was probably a little bit too much than I would be willing to pay. However, if you do find it at a decent price, and you like the look of it, then what I can say is that it is very, very well made. You know, it looks impressive, and I think it will look really good on anyone's watch as well. And that, you know, I'm genuine about that as well. A little bit different in design, you know, the style of the dial is unusual, to say the least, you know, with this sort of like half and half, sort of like a moon shape, displaying the movement below. However, you know, it doesn't quite do enough to absolutely blow me away. Maybe that's just my personal taste. It most likely is. You know, everyone's got their own taste, but just for me, it doesn't quite do it. However, saying that, it is, you know, a well-constructed, well-built, and well-thought-out watch. So this was the Thomas Earnshaw Beaufort, and that's what it's all about. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and thanks for watching, guys.